Hi, and welcome to the Sam Dever Podcast, episode 26. In this episode, I speak with actor, writer, director, artistic director, acting coach, Wolf Bodison. Wolf was one of my teachers at Playhouse West in LA, the acting school, and I actually had the privilege and honor of being directed from him in several scene showcases and a one act, and it was just beyond an incredible experience to work with him. I mean, even when I started at Playhouse West and was in the beginning level of the program, I would go to the shows he was directing, and he's a creative genius. I don't know how else to say it. I mean, his mind is brilliant. His visions of what he can put together with the simplest of things on a stage is incredible, and I'm really honored that and really happy he came on and we got to have a conversation. His story of coming to LA is awesome. I can't wait for a lot of you to hear that, and just how he's evolved as an artist himself, and he's a really inspirational, hardworking, motivating guy. So I'm really grateful to not only have worked with him, but to know him because he's a great human being. And the book of the episode is going to be a book Wolf actually mentions in the episode. It's Sanford Meisner on Acting. If you're going to be an actor and you want to learn the Meisner technique, this will be your Bible. It's a book you'll read over and over and over again. And even if you don't want to be in acting, but you're just curious, I think there's a lot of good things in here you can get out of it. Sandy Meisner's a legend. He taught at Playhouse West toward the end of his career, and the man was a genius himself. Just all about living in the present moment and what is in front of you. So Sanford Meisner on acting. Without further ado, here's my conversation with Wolf. Wolf Bodison, welcome to the Sam Dever Podcast.
Hey, Sam. Thanks for having me.
Oh, this is an honor. You've been on the radar for a while. It was just the timing. I'm like, I got to bring Wolf on.
I'm excited, man. Thanks again. Thanks for thinking of me. Happy to be here.
Yeah. How have you been?
Been good. Holidays. So just spending some time with the family and just relaxing. Because, once we're through with the winter holidays, then it's all year until the next winter holidays over at Playhouse West. So I tend to just lay around and watch a lot of movies, do nothing.
Do nothing. Watch any good movies?
I just saw Being the Ricardos, saw the Spider-Man movie, the Matrix film.
Wow.
So kind of starting to do the tours a little bit.
No spoilers for me, but every single person I've talked to about Spider-Man just said it was absolutely incredible. Is that accurate?
It's fun. Yeah. I mean, I love the permission they gave themselves to explore all the other stories. The other films was, using Doctor Strange, you could kind of end up doing anything. And that's what they did.
Because he can mess with time and do all that.
Exactly. Exactly. So it made it a fun movie to, you'll see what they do in terms of the other movies and that kind of stuff. But it's cool.
Maybe some inspiration for some future stage performances, perhaps.
Hey, don't put it in my head because I'll do it.
And I want to get into that with you, of course.
I'll mash up a couple of plays.
There you go. You could even have like a Doctor Strange that's part of the audience.
Why not? Why not? That idea has been born right here. Look for it in 2022.
Oh man, there's some other stuff I want to get to. I got to bring it up now. Like we'll go back and forth with this, but man, that's one thing you taught me, man. Like I'm very grateful to have had mentors in various realms and teachers, whether it was weightlifting or business or whatever it was. And then when it came to acting, in particular, the stage, I had Wolf Bodison. And what an incredible experience at Playhouse West in those performances. Not only like me being a part of the ones with you, but just watching all the other ones. I remember when I was a beginner and I first started going, I went to like one of the first Spoon River mashups. I'm like, what is this? This is incredible.
Yeah. And when we started it, it was like, what is this? We just had that idea of, it actually was started because it was always like, we want to do a Spoon River show. And those are hard because if everyone does a speech or two, it's only about a 20-minute show.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sort of looking for a theme so we could do a show. And then it was when we were doing the speeches and people were kind of making up their own little stories to fit the speeches to. And we started off with an idea of the show was called Kanye Be Damned. And it was off of the Taylor Swift incident where he went up to the stage and he grabbed the mic. And there's a Spoon River in there where the guy talks about, he received this honor from the group, and he was kind of the sarcastic thank you to them. So he was like, we're going to maybe do a bunch of shows, a bunch of scenes, with that kind of idea in mind. And then I think there was one day we had a small class, and there was these two guys went up, Aaron and Paul. They went up and did one. And I said, well, let's just go. Okay, they did one and they had another one. Let's just go into this next one. And we're sitting there going, wouldn't it be kind of cool if we just kind of went from one into the other? And then we just did a show where we just kind of went from one Spoon River to the next, to the next, to the next. And you kind of sit there for a second and go, yeah, that would be kind of cool. Let's do it. And with the ideas that I have, a lot of times you have the idea and it's like you have no idea how you're going to do it. But it's like, that'll be a cool thing to do. Let's figure it out. And that's what we did.
Yeah, and that's piggybacking off that. Even when you directed Moonshine with Ford and I,
mm-hmm.
It was such an awesome process. Like you said, like you go from that. All right, we know what we want to do.
Yeah.
Let's actually sit down and read it. But what do we do from here? Is it just going to be two people sitting across from each other talking? No, you got to add that, and just doing all those rehearsals with you and all that extra work, all the techniques and everything. And then even leading up to that day before the show, you're still perfecting it and adding those things.
Well, and the thing with theater for me is always that they can easily boil down to two people sitting around talking to each other.
Yeah.
Which to me is just death in theater. It's people, that's why a lot of people are bored about theater. So a lot of times the ideas I come up with are solutions around that. In a way, that's where even the idea of the ebb and flow mm-hmm. system came up, was to create a sort of movement that keeps the audience engaged, So, and then if I do a play, there's several plays that I've done straight, and then students had asked me to do it again. And it's like, well, I'm not going to do it again like I did it last time. And they're like, yeah, it's okay. That's cool. And I said, okay. And then I'll come back to them a few days later. I'll go, okay, we're going to do it on a spaceship. We did Morning Coffee, where the New York couple were arguing, breaking up. And I'd done it years before straight. And then another group came to me, they wanted to do it. I was like, yeah. And then I was like, why don't we do it as aliens on a spaceship above Earth, and they're breaking up, And so this whole thing evolved about these two aliens, and we built this Doctor Who spinning cabinet at one of the doors, which was like the transporter. So they would be throwing stuff in it, and she'd hit a button, and it would spin, and it would spin and spin all the way around. It would be gone as if the stuff was going down to Earth. So the idea was, this ship has been up there since the beginning of time, and all of the technology that we have has come from them. So
whoa,
we even filmed this little bit at the end, because there was one part he had a computer, and she threw it in there and sent it down. And at the end, we did a little vignette of Wazakowski and Bill Gates were in their garage trying to figure out the thing, and they're like, ah. And Bill's like, I'm going to the bathroom. And he goes and he finds the thing in his backyard, and he goes, Waz, I got an idea. And we showed that at the very end, so to kind of full circle the idea of these guys being up there. So, even when I did tape, and I did it as the Jerry Springer show.
That was brilliant.
Because I'd done tape years before straight, and it was like, I don't want to do that again. And each time it's that moment of I'm telling them this idea, and they're looking at me like, what are you talking about? I said, no, it's going to be the Jerry Springer show. And one fact, a couple of them were like, I don't know, man. I don't know if I'm going to do this. It's like, no, this is what we're going to do. So.
In North of Providence, too. North of Providence.
Oh, yeah.
We did with Kamitri and Richard and them.
Yeah.
Tahira and Ayana, yeah.
That play has been done so many times. And so it was like, I actually saw a picture of the three witches. And I thought, these actresses, there were three actresses, and they were like the three sisters of Richard, who I forget the title role. And so we then did what's called, my old man brain's starting to catch up to me.
No.
We did the nursery rhyme, the dialogue, where everything I do, the dialogue is always said in the order that it's written. We don't take anything out. We don't add anything. So that is the integrity we keep of the script. And so, but I might take different lines and give them to different people, but they're going to still be said in the order. So that's what we did with that one. And just always looking for a theme to follow, where his life was a nightmare, and, he was being haunted by, these witches, so to speak. And has this, by telling the truth at the end, he has his redemption. And even, I think you saw it was all in red the whole play was in red. And then at the end, it fades into the white. So just, a lot of times just making it interesting for myself to work on. I mean, I direct, the scenes and stuff all day long. We do them straight all day long. So at a certain point, it's like, we can do this in our sleep, Let's have fun with it and make it interesting and fun for the audience.
Yeah, and going through the last performance I was a part of, that Nursery Rhymes showcase we did.
Yeah.
That to this day, and I'm not going to really give away what the Nursery Rhymes are. You have to go to Playhouse West and go through the advanced program to get to that. But it was the most challenging, creative thing I have ever done. And I remember there was a time where I'm like, I don't know if I can do this. This is so hard. But you push through.
Yeah.
You do it. And it's amazing how once that creative valve opens, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, you even said that Nursery Rhymes Made for You started to open up. I started to see a little method to your madness on a lot of it. Wow, you can really, like you just said, add and take away some things without damaging the anatomy of what message you're trying to get across or the dialogue. And it totally transforms.
Yeah. It's like you said, not changing the integrity or the anatomy of the dialogue. That is what the writer has created, and we're not going to mess with that. But we may kind of disseminate it differently to, have different people say things. And you can tell, by doing that show, you realize you can tell other stories with those words as they're written, it's challenging. There were many times when we were working on, I'm thinking, this ain't going to work.
Yeah.
I don't know about this show. This is going to be a rough one.
But one thing I'll say about the show that I'll never forget and I'll always take with me, and especially credit to you, because for anyone listening or talking, it wasn't just one thing it was a multiple moving piece machine. So many people involved, so many different things you had to be ready for. And, doors are opening in 45 minutes and the show was pretty much down, but we were still fine tuning a couple of things leading up to that. And I remember you up in the sound booth saying, all right, guys, 40 minutes. All right, guys, 30 minutes. And then we do the show. It went really well. We did 2 shows that day and then it was over. Yeah. So it's I guess one question I have for you, is it bittersweet for you because that's the difference between theater and film a lot of times. Theater, you get this such enriching experience and you get to live it out. In film, not that you can't have that, but film, it stays there.
Yes.
So do you ever have this letdown after you have put in a ton of work into a show and now it's over?
Always. You're right. the thing about film is you have a product you can show people, and so you can always share it with folks. With a play, it's done, and you can tell people about it. I'm talking about the morning coffee and stuff, and you're like, people are like, yeah, that sounds interesting, but you had to see it
right
to get the full effect of it. And taping plays never really works either. It doesn't really show the piece in its best light, but it is hard, especially at Playhouse. We do somewhat limited runs. We do maybe at the most 10 to 15 shows, and even that's a lot. We did the 2 shows with that Nursery Rhymes show, and the amount of work we put in, to do 2 shows, and then it's just gone.
Yeah.
It is hard to kind of reconcile that a lot of times, but that's why a lot of times during the year I would just go to the next thing, have the next thing running already in rehearsals, so I wouldn't have time to be depressed about But I tell you, the relationships that I have from my working career as an actor in theater and directing students in different productions at the school, those are the relationships that usually last the longest, because all the time that we spend together, those late night rehearsals, and the pressure cooker that we're in to make this thing work and get it ready for that date, is a bond that's created that's usually very strong, and those relationships usually last a lot longer than, say, you're working on a film and you guys are together for 4 weeks and you're like, hey, let's stay in touch. Yeah, and then,
right.
It never happens.
What's your Instagram? Yeah, I'll follow you. Sure.
Yeah,
right.
yeah, right. And then that's that. So the experiences are very rewarding in terms of creatively, but it can be hard and, like you said, bittersweet when it's done.
Yeah, and I think for me, and you're a huge credit to this, along with other teachers at Playhouse West, it was like right before the pandemic hit is right when I felt like I was starting to grasp it. Like all these things, I'm like, what does he mean by talk as me? What does he mean by just say it as, I don't understand. And then like finally I go, that's what they're talking about. And like really like making it truthful to you. And you're right. Like having that experience of just being on that stage and you've done all the work. You've done everything. There's nothing to be nervous about. There's nothing to be, it's fine to have the jitters, but to just go out there with confidence and like, we're just going to have fun tonight. And we're just going to let loose. Yeah. It takes a lot of work to get to that, but it's an amazing experience.
Well, you have to earn the right to have fun, to be relaxed. And that comes from all the work. And I've been fortunate to work with folks like yourself, a group of students who are willing to put in the work, especially by the time they get into advanced, they understand what it is. Mm-hmm. And, they understand the sacrifice that's going to be needed. So you don't have to push very hard to get you guys to work hard. So you guys are excited and want to do the work. So it's fun for me as well.
Absolutely. And I do want to take it back a little bit and give people some of your background, because I think you have a very fascinating history, how you got into the business yourself. So if you could, how did you get to LA first? You're from the East Coast, right?
I am. I'm from the DC area. I grew up in Washington, D.C., and then lived in Rockville, Maryland, which is just north of D.C. And then I went to the University of Virginia and studied fine arts, played college football there. And when I was there, I thought I would actually get into advertising. And so I even internshiped at an ad firm there. But just wasn't. Then I did a project in my art studies where I did a video, and I took black and white slides of kids playing war and basically made a music video to the song Bullet the Blue Sky by U2. And went really well. And I remember one of my teachers, whose class I did it for, says, have you ever thought about film? And I was like, huh. And then it was almost like that moment was like, I'm going to LA. It was the most bizarre thing. It's like, and I had always been doing writing and had, done then doing creative writing and doing those other classes in college also. And so I think from that moment, it was that decision of I was going to go to LA to be a writer and director, because my football career was pretty much over. I mean, I had suffered injuries on my neck and shoulder. And in fact, my last year there, I was on a medical. So, because I really couldn't participate anymore physically. So I just helped with the program and that kind of thing, in an administrative way. So me and a buddy, his name is Damon, he wanted to come out. He was doing stand-up comedy and stuff. And he's like, well, we had this idea, let's go to LA. So we had a bright idea. We'd done this before, coming from Los Angeles to LA when we had visited his dad. We were like, what we're going to do is we're going to get one of those You Drive It cars and drive back across to LA. And we went to Boston and we got a car, and they give you 10 days to drive across the country. Well, we were smart. We said, we're going to go as fast as we can and then have the car for that remaining time to drive around town. You know, hopefully they won't notice the other 2,000 extra miles on the odometer. You know, so we made it in 2.5 days. You know, I drove while he slept, and he drove while I slept. And so we made it out here. And what I had done the spring before, I had come out on my spring break and had looked up back at the school in the human resources department. They had I looked up all the alumni who had gone to University of Virginia who were out here in the film business. And so I sent some letters ahead to them and said, hey, I'm coming out. I'd love to meet. And so I met with some people over my spring break. And then, so I had a few connections when I came out. So I don't know where I'd gotten the smart idea to do that, but it was really helpful. And hooked up, I was able to get a job at through those connections, a job at the filing department at Columbia TV. And, you know, was working there and just was able to make some money and, you know, kind of get my foot in the door in a way. And all the while, my idea was to write and direct and stuff. And I was doing my own writing, and I was also doing productions with like the different colleges and stuff, being a PA for them and doing whatever they wanted me to do, you know, just trying to get some experience of the film set. And then I knew some alumni from UVA who were at the company Castle Rock. Mm-hmm. And Lambton Enix was one of them. And he said, hey, we have a job opening as a PA here at Castle Rock. And Castle Rock was Rob Reiner and Alan Horn, you know, these guys who had gotten together, Glenn Padnick and Andy Scheinman, who were building this company, and they'd done Princess Bride, and they were doing a lot of TV. And it was a hot company at the time, so it was a great opportunity. So I started in the mailroom there and kind of just worked my way up over the years. Then got into TV, doing as a PA on a couple of their shows, and was like the head coordinator of the PAs and stuff, whatever that title was. But just learning a lot and earning a lot of trust from different people, trying to work hard and, you know, be that guy that this is impossible. You know, we got to get the script from here to over there in 20 minutes. And it's like, I'll do it. Let's go, you know, and get it there, you know. From that, I eventually started to transition into location scouting, kind of just working my way up the production ladder, you know, and did a couple of shows as an assistant. And then actually then I got an opportunity to be Rob Reiner's assistant on Misery.
Wow.
Actually, before that, I was the picture car coordinator on Boys in the Hood, which was a lot of fun. Crazy
movie.
Crazy stories from that.
That might be a separate podcast, huh?
Yeah. I mean, basically, I would go down in the South Central and organize all of the different car clubs, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, just the different factions and all the politics that went with that. And I was completely, you know, I had no idea about any of it. I was so naive. You know, I stood on some corners I shouldn't have been standing on with like 3 cameras hanging off of me. And I'm like, what a dummy. But I mean, it was a really great movie. It was a lot of fun. And I also had worked as Rob Reiner's assistant on Misery, which was a huge opportunity because I got to watch him and Barry Sonnenfeld kind of work together. And I took notes. I have like journals full of notes of them, their conversations and the setups and that kind of stuff. Interactions with Jimmy Caan and Kathy Bates. Just even watching them work was such an opportunity. And when, then I got back into location managing, and then just with that, Castle Rock and earning their trust, they promoted me to be the location manager on A Few Good Men. And so I started running. This is like my first, it's crazy in its own self. My first job as a location manager, which was on A Few Good Men, And so I'm running around terrified, trying to find these locations, and I get back to the office one day after scouting, and I bump into Rob, and we start talking. And out of the blue, it's like, I know you want to write and direct. And said, but have you ever done any acting? I was like, no. He goes, well, the role of Harold in the scripts, right? And I said, yeah. He goes, I think you might be, quite good in that. He says, look, just come in and audition, see how you do. I was like, okay. Then went off, started scouting again, right? But I had the smart idea from somewhere to get a acting coach, Julie Areola, who helped me prepare for the audition. And so came in and auditioned and, thought for whatever. And then went back scouting, and then they kept calling me back in as for callbacks. And, it was one of those things where you have nothing to lose. And at least I knew Rob and Andy Scheinman was in the room also. And so I knew these guys from Castle Rock. So there was that familiarity. But I remember one day I was out scouting, and then I got a call from Rob's office, and the secretary said, I have Rob on the phone. And it was those days of the pagers. So I had to, pull over and go to this a cell phone. And I even know where that phone is today. And got on the phone, and Rob got on the phone, and he said, he says, what's going on? So I'm scouting, trying to find these locations. It's great. Look, he said, look, welcome to the movie business. I want to offer you this job as Harold Dawson in A Few Good Men. And, it was one of those moments like, oh, okay, cool, thank you. And then I drove back to the office, and I was talking to the head of production at the company, Jeff Stock, and I said to him, I said, look, Rob just offered me the job as Harold in the movie. He says, yeah, I know, congratulations. I said, thanks, but look, do you think I can still do the location job while I do the job? He goes, well, I think it's probably a good idea you just focus on the role. And I remember going home and sitting at the window thinking, wow, what just happened here? And then we had the first table reading, right? And me and Julie and I kept working on it. I was working on it. And then we had the first table reading, and it was over in Culver City. It was in the sound stage and had the tables around, and come in, I'm early, and I'm sitting there waiting. And in walks Kevin Bacon, in walks Demi Moore, Kevin Pollak, Kiefer Sutherland, Tom Cruise, Jack Nicholson, Christopher Guest. And I'm thinking, oh, what have I got myself into?
Talk about a star-studded crew. Wow.
It was crazy. And, it's one thing to know it on paper that these are the people in it. It's another thing when they start walking in the room, and they're coming in, and they're, fortunately, I was so lucky because all of them were so gracious. And so, they could have easily like, who is this guy? Never acted. Get him out of here, especially Tom. He was so gracious and helpful and supportive. And we sit down and we start reading. And of course, they're just reading, but man, they're like awesome. They're doing their thing. And all I can do, we talk about being present in class and stuff, and just being where you are right now. The time will come when you get to you, it get to you. But I have my finger on the page, and I'm seeing how many pages are left. I'm getting all worked up, and then like some water dropped on my page, and I'm thinking, is there a leak in the building? I said, no, man, I was sweating. And then it came for my first line. I just belted it out. And they all laughed. It's like, yeah, he's ready. So that was my introduction into acting, which has been quite a roller coaster ride since then.
So many things to unpack there. Like, I think the number one thing that just fascinates me the most with that story is, first of all, so you had zero intention of ever being an actor. Like right. You never even crossed your mind. I just want to be a director. I want to be a writer. Probably never even thought to act ever.
No, I hadn't. I always thought they were kind of, they were kind of kooky, spending their time trying to be other people and stuff, So, my goal was, my fear was, as a director, if anything, learning something about acting. So as a director, I could communicate with them and relate to them. It was really my only thought about acting in general. But other than that, no, not at all.
I tell you what, if there's ever stories I hear about destiny, that's one of them. like you said, you were staring out the window like, what is going on?
What's going on? What's happening here? And but again, and it was just one of those things. Along the way, I was just so fortunate to have so many people who were supportive. And, especially Rob. I mean, he saw something. It's that thing of, like we talk about it, the role. He basically was like, look, just you are this guy, And so he had spent time with me because I was his assistant. So he was familiar with me as a person. And whatever qualities he saw in me, he kind of saw in the role. And it's like, look, and give him credit that he felt confident in his abilities to coach me up to get it out of a person who, had never done it before. And he even said, though, he knew that I would do the work from, being around me, and that I would do the work necessary to be ready to, work and that kind of thing. So,
and to step into that with virtually no experience on that stage, and you had a very significant role in that movie, and did a great job. Like, I mean, was it your work and really a credit to your work ethic and everything else you did that really made it so you were able to make that happen?
It was, but also, look, it was one of those, you kind of, it's that lightning in a bottle, and it's kind of that thing of, there was almost no pressure because it was like I was the underdog.
Right.
And so, but that completely got flipped on its head once the movie came out, and once my story came out, and once the people saw the performance, and then suddenly there were expectations. Okay. Now I'm no longer the underdog. I'm the guy of, well, let's see you do that again. You're such a wonderful actor. When in truth, I was still a green actor developing, and I got into class and was trying to learn what it was, this craft of acting. But suddenly I found myself where before I was going in the room for A Few Good Men, just like, now there was a lot of expectations, which, look, it's a great problem to have. But I wouldn't recommend, it's not the best way to start a career. You kind of want to be able to have those experiences of learning, not under this microscope in a way, because, look, after that, there was a lot of crap auditions I did where people were looking at me expecting something. But, as it goes and you're still learning, you're not always showing up and doing you're the best, you try your best, but it's not always the best. Yes, there were times that I was, again, fortunate to bring to the table some good work. But, I mean, it was a really stressful time. It really kind of got into a lot of bad habits of acting, trying to unfortunately go into the room trying to prove to people I knew how to act, which is the worst mindset that an actor can go into an audition. You should go into the room confident in your abilities and showing them the work that you'll bring to the table, not coming in and saying, hey guys, I want to prove to you I do know what I'm doing. So it was a very needy and very kind of, again, sort of stressful time. So, but look, I'm grateful. Like I learned a lot, kind of does shape you in a lot of ways. So, through that, I had about 10 years of working, I was still getting jobs and getting good jobs and having some great experiences working on TV and in film, and started doing some theater. But, also going in some auditions and being in front of some directors. And it was like I had no business really being in front of them at that time, at the course of someone's career,
Right.
It's like one of those things, man, I wish that opportunity was now.
Right.
Sort of thing, with the experience that I have and the knowledge that I have now. But, the journey, it was what it was. And again, wouldn't change it for anything. And it got to a point that I kind of felt like I wanted to find something else in terms of the way I was working, because I did feel stagnant. And I felt exactly what was, I knew there was something wrong. I didn't know what it was. But so let me get back into class, and I wanted to find a school that was, let's say, works every single day. Because it was like, what I need is the reps to go every day. It's the thing with audition for us actors a lot of times is if we auditioned every single day, auditions would be nothing, It's the fact that we get them so sporadically sometimes that every audition becomes a big thing, So I wanted to find a class that it was on more of a daily basis, which that doesn't exist. But I did find a school that had classes twice a week. I was like, oh, okay. So I started reading up on it. And they taught the Meisner technique, which I was unfamiliar about. And I started reading about it. I go, oh, man, I like that. I like that. What's this school? It's Playhouse West. I said, okay. Saw that they had an audit and went and did the audit. And I remember auditing and thinking, what in the world is this? This is crazy, They're
knocking on doors. They're screaming at people. What's going on?
There's no motivation. There's no, sort of through line. It's just you're coming in, and they're repeating one another, and then they're yelling at each other and kicking each other out. So what is this madness? And as, happens a lot of times with auditors, I thought, I'm getting out of here, because a lot of times auditors in the middle of the class will just kind of creep out because it does look like a circus. It looks crazy, if you're not familiar with it, which I wasn't. But I thought, let me go down there and talk to the man, see what he has to say in the interview. And it was Tony Savant that I went and spoke to. And, he just kind of laid out some details about things and told me the book to get, Sanford Meisner on acting, which I did and read about it and got a little bit more information about kind of the philosophy of it. And I was like, well, something about it speaks to me. Let me try it out. So I went over and started class. They haven't been able to get rid of me since.
Wow, that's so okay. So was that your first real introduction to really getting into the stage? Was that Playhouse? Like really getting into? So you had theater?
I had done theater before.
Okay, yeah. So you had done some theater.
Yeah,
going into there.
And again, I'm always this person. The first play I ever did was a play. I was always on stage. I was the lead guy. Never left the stage. And I always think, God, that's so kind of crazy. How you get these opportunities? I'd get these opportunities to do something I've never done it before, and like take off the biggest bite possible.
Yeah.
It's like, but it was a play. What was it? The Letter. Charles Randolph Wright directed it, and it was a really great experience, and learned a lot. And I've done a play with Kim Coles called Homework, where we played different. I played like 5 or 6 different characters. She played 3 sisters, and myself and 3 other guys played all the men in her life, their lives. And it was a comedy, and it was, Charles directed that also. And we did, man, I think 5 different runs around town. We took it to New York twice. We did an 8-show a week production of it in New Jersey, which was awesome. So yes, I'd had some experience with theater before.
Okay. And then, so when you went to Playhouse, you started at Playhouse. What was that moment where you realized you wanted to teach and start teaching people acting? And
really, I guess not so much a moment of I was there. I guess I was there for like 3-4 years, because just continuing to study and work as well. And it's funny, I remember the first exercise with dialogue that I did in the beginning, where, you just memorize your own dialogue and you don't know what the other person's going to say. You just read the scene twice and then just memorize your lines. And I remember doing it. And the exercise really forces you to listen, like you've never listened before. And that was the moment I was like, what in the world have I been doing this whole time? I have not been listening, been present with my partners like I was just now in that moment. And it was really emotional. I was like, wow, this is definitely something I want to continue. At a certain point, I think Mr. Carnegie, Bob Carnegie, the owner of Playhouse West, I'd been in his classes and studied with him, and he'd been a mentor to me in terms of really. I remember one day I was in an exercise, and I was, doing whatever the hell I was doing. He stops, he goes, what in the world are you doing? I said, well, I'm acting. He said, well, stop it.
That sounds something like he would say, yeah.
Just stop acting. Just talk to them.
Right.
You've done the work. Talk to them. And so eventually that clicked, made sense. And then one day it was, I guess, brought up in a meeting. It's like, well, they were always looking for teachers as subs, and Mr. Carnegie came to me. He's like, look, why don't you come sit and watch me teach, and we'll have you come in and, start to sub for different people after a while. And they had a class there pre-COVID, a class called a rehearsal class, where every Tuesday, Thursday at 3:30, students from all over the school could, all different levels could get together and have a free class. And the teacher in that was a teacher who was developing. And, we weren't really teaching so much as in just letting them work, offering some suggestions and support and that kind of thing. But it was just getting used to being in that chair and having a certain sense of, authority in that moment of running a class. So kind of got my feet wet with that, and then started to do some subbing, for different beginning classes and that kind of thing. And then started to do intermediate and advanced classes. And then I remember I was at my daughter's school at a function, and Mr. Carnegie rings me, and I get on the phone, and he says, Tony Savant, who was the director of the school, he says, Tony is going to be moving to Philadelphia. He's going to be starting Playhouse West, Philadelphia. I said, okay. He says, and I want you to take over as the director of the school and take over his classroom. And I was like, okay, sure. And again, taking off the biggest bite I could chew.
Another window moment. What is going on?
Like, what? And he had 9 classes, right? So I said, sure, So I sat in with Tony just to meet his students and watch what he was doing, and then he left. And so suddenly I had my, complement of classes, the 9 classes a week, and the responsibilities of the director. And, there and again was a whole nother journey of, learning the rope, playing catch up, trying to just find my own voice like I had to do with it as an actor. And, kind of just learning, who I was as a teacher and kind of, working with the students and, did well. I think back of who I was then and how I teach now. Fortunately, there has been growth. But, I was terrified a lot of times, what am I going to say? And to hope I don't say something wrong and that kind of thing. Come into class with things to say. I got my spiel. Here's my lesson for today. I came ready to at least have something to say. Which, now I just show up. I have that theory, the idea of it's going to tell me what it needs to be, so let you guys work and work off what you guys do and trust in the knowledge I have. But that just came. The fortunate thing about taking over that job and the caseload that he had, the course load he had, I was able to put in that 10,000 hours fairly quickly,
Right.
And so through the consistency of just seeing exercise after exercise, scene after scene, and start to see the patterns in things and to start to put connections together for myself about things and what works and doesn't work and that kind of stuff. So for myself, always trying to continue to evolve in my teaching and my philosophy of the work and that kind of thing.
And you remind me, like, as I'm listening, I believe, was it the 120? It was called Say Yes?
Yes. The Say Yes was for the film festival.
Film festival.
Right.
Okay. And I just remember.
We did have 120-hour festivals also. Yeah.
Yeah. But remember, you just said yes. Like, it's amazing by just saying yes what can happen. And sometimes that's the hardest part. It's just saying yes and then figuring it out. You just figure it out. Yeah.
And, there's times I think back and I go, times I've said no to things. What if I just said yes to them, and figured it out? Like, how I do with the plays. I say yes to an idea and figure it out. I said yes to these opportunities and, worked it out. There's a lot of stumbling going on at times, but, just keep plowing forward and things will work out.
Yeah, you have a fascinating. I love your story, and I love to see your evolution. I mean, I'm like, what, man? What's coming for him next? Anything's a go. Like, And one question that I did want to talk to you about, because I think it's interesting from your perspective, having just been around so many amazing actors, and then eventually transitioning to including coaching and directing and teaching actors. What are certain qualities that you've noticed from the actors that really do take off? Or I don't know if make it's the right word, because we both know there's so many super talented people, the business, there's so many things that are involved in it. But some people that you have seen be really successful in it, what are some qualities you saw in them besides the talent?
First off, it's just that gumption, of getting after it, because the amount of rejection that we deal with and the amount of no's that we hear, it's that perseverance, and also just that sometimes it's just the idea of not taking no for an answer. A lot of times we take the no and we keep going, but we're okay with it and we keep going. It's the folks that's like, nah, I'm not okay with that. And so there's a certain thrust to their hustle, that allows them to kind of hunt out different opportunities a little bit more than most other folks, But some qualities for what makes some of the folks easier, more fun to work with, that really you can be very talented, and you should definitely have your point of view of things, but you have to be open and willing to, especially as an actor, we have to be open to direction, and not take it as criticism, which a lot of times it's hard to do. you know. And I always say, if let's not try to be good, but if we're going to be good at anything, be good at making adjustments, you know. And the folks that do well can make adjustments, especially the guys who get jobs, because they're in the room, director gives them a note, and they're good at making that adjustment on the spot, you know. So just being very pliable and fluid and hardworking, you know, you can't go get around that. I mean, it takes a lot of work. But this business is also such a bizarre thing. It's the dichotomy that exists because we have to want it more than anything, right? And hustle. But we have to have at the same time a long mentality about it, you know. It's a marathon, you know, and that and a lot of times we get caught on that rat race, on that wheel, and we gotta, you know, oh, I gotta get pictures, oh, I gotta get this audition, oh, I gotta do this, oh, the next thing is gonna get me there, the next thing is gonna get me there, oh, I gotta meet this person, meet that person. All of that is helpful and is important. But what happens a lot of times when we get on that wheel, but then things don't progress like we want, we tend to get discouraged and burn out and disappointed. And a lot of times people say, screw it, you know? And because there is no logic to this business. There's no A, B, C, D, E, F, G to it, you know? So we kind of have to have that mentality of wanting it so bad, but at the same time have that, you know, marathon mentality about it and just keep showing up, you know? It's like even in auditions, we have to want it and work on it in a way that it was the most important thing in the world, but then walk in the room like we could give a damn, you know? And so to be able to hold those two things at the same time, a lot of times is hard, you know? And I think it was Woody Allen. It's like, you know, he said 90% of it is just showing up and it's just being persistent. And, you know, these opportunities come from, I've had opportunities come from the craziest places, you know, especially when you're not even looking, you know. I did a movie this past 2 years ago called American Skin. And I got a call from a guy from Playhouse West who I was in class with. And he said, hey, can you send me your reel? I was like, sure. Because he produces. And I've worked with him before on other, Lucas is his name, Lucas Binkham. And I'd done some plays with him, been in class with him. So I knew of his work, and he does good work. And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll send it over. And so I didn't hear anything for like 3 months. And he gets back to me and says, hey, I want to offer you this role in this movie that I'm producing. I was like, okay, sure. You know, didn't even know what it was, hadn't read a script. I'm like, sure, okay, fine. He's like, okay, cool. You know, I'll send you the script. I read it, you know, playing the captain of a precinct. And I was like, okay. He goes, and I said, well, you know, look, but I can't do it on these particular 3 days because the film festival's going on, you know, not thinking anything of it. He goes, well, let me check, but sure. He comes back and says, yeah, there's no problem. We'll work around it. I mean, the schedule works out perfect. I was like, fine. I'm thinking this is some, you know, micro budget film that Lucas is doing, but I'm excited about it because, you know, he does good work. I have a fitting, and I go to the fitting, and it's at a big production wardrobe house, right? Studio house. I'm going, wow, Lucas is really calling in the favors for this, man. Cool. And I go in, and I'm being fitted, and the costumer, the wardrobe person, head of wardrobe says, have you ever worked with Nate before? I'm like, Nate? She goes, yeah, Nate Parker. In my head, I'm going through the Rolodex. Nate Parker. Oh my God. Birth of a Nation. No, I haven't worked with, I'm excited to though.
You're about to.
And then I'm thinking, I'm like, again, it was one of those, what have I got myself into here? What? How did this happen? So
you said yes.
Exactly. I said yes. I just said sure. I'm in a Nate Parker film, and was an awesome experience. And he's fantastic to work with. I got to tell you, working with him and watching him do his work, he wrote it, directed it, starred in it. And, the energy he had on the set and working and the positivity that he had was very impressive. Really took from, would love to emulate that sort of, archetype when working myself, because he really had he made everybody feel like they were doing their job and everyone was on board to make the movie. It's a really good movie. It was really relevant for the time, especially still today. So that idea of a job can come from anywhere, You just, like we always hear the cliche, you just got to be ready. You got to be studying, you got to be ready for when that opportunity comes, because you never know when it's going to come. And that's, in acting, that's nowhere else as much as it is in acting.
Acting leads to acting. Like, you do one acting thing, and actually Kathleen, I had her in for class one time, and she said this. She said, you never know who you're sitting next to at Playhouse West, who they're going to be. If they're going to be, may not be an actor, they may become a director, they may become a producer, they may become a writer, and they remember you.
Yeah.
And even when Rob Reiner came to you, like he knew you. He knew you, and he's like, oh yeah, Wolf can do this. He may not know it yet, but I know he can do it.
Right. So, relationships matter. And I always tell the students, I say, look, if you get a job, you do your best job, because people are watching. If you're a PA, be the best PA, man. If you got a small role, do your work. Do the best work you can in that role, because people are watching. And they will remember if you do a good job. They will remember if you are a pain in the butt and aren't prepared and not doing the job. So whatever you do, put your best foot forward.
Wow, this has been such a fun conversation, and we're about to that mark now, and we could talk for 4 hours. I could talk to you forever. One question I did have real quick as we transition out is, because you've been in the business a while, from all different angles, all different positions. Obviously, things change as time goes on, but what are some, aside from technological, obviously like streaming and things like that happen now, is there any changes in the actual business itself that you've just noticed, aside from, just maybe the way it's run, the way it goes? I'm just curious.
The big thing now recently with COVID,
right,
for us actors, now we used to go into the room for our auditions, but now it's all self-tape, or they may do then a call back online and stuff. But the last few jobs I've been worked on has been cast off of a self-tape. So, and which is at first I didn't like the self-tapes. In fact, the first couple calls I got about it, I was like, self-tape? Come on, man, I go in the room, man.
You know who I am.
Come on. So my agent was like, no, Wolf. If you want the job, you need to send me a self-tape. So you relent and you put your ego aside and you start doing it. And I kind of, now I also coach them. And I coach folks and shoot the self-tapes as well. And there's the positive of it is we get to do it as many times as we want and try to get it as good as we kind of want, which can be also another problem, because our perfectionism can creep in at times, and we're always trying to, get all. It's like after a while, it's like, look, they want to see what you can do with it. Who cares if you flub that little bit? It looks great, So, but it takes a little bit of the stress out of the thing of going into the room, which is, it's its own experience that you learn to deal with and manage. But then there's, another issue, a negative of it is that, now you don't know, first off, if they even watch the things. At least when you go in the room, you say, at least I know they saw me. But then also the number of people who are watching it, like agents are watching it now. And it's like we've created other gatekeepers, more gatekeepers. Like, I've had agents say, well, to the clients, they want them to shoot it again. And I've even had conversations with agents like, well, but look, was it bad? And they're like, no, I just thought a few choices, like, look, we could do this all day, you know? If it's bad, then yes, we reshoot it. But choices were made. You might not agree with it, but they might like it. We don't know what anybody wants, you know? So we have to just do the best work we can. I even told one agent, you stop watching it. Stop watching them. Because, and you know, because that was not their job before. They got us a job. We went in. They got feedback from the casting. Now we send it to them so they can send it to casting. A lot of them end up watching it and start judging their you know, and they can get into the head of their actors a lot of times, you know, trying to tell them to do it again and what they're doing wrong. And it's like, we got enough people, you know, enough influences that we have to deal with. So, but, you know, that's kind of the world we're living in, and trying to make the best of that. And again, I kind of like them now. You know, it does give you a chance to kind of, you know, a lot of times that audition in the room is like that one shot done. You know, you come in, you do it, and that was it. Now you can play around, make different choices, see what works, what doesn't work, send in the best ones that you think work in terms of your choices. So you feel like you're actually filming a little bit more than you're going in an audition situation. But then also, again, I'll keep talking. Then also, the thing is, you know, when you went in the room, they would send you, you know, 3 pages, 4 pages, because they only had a limited number of time to see each person so they can get the max number of people in the room in that day. Well, now they send you 10 pages, 12 pages, you know, because it's a self-tape. They can watch them, not watch them. And so they don't have to worry about the time constraint. So sometimes you get these 12, 15-page auditions like, come on, man. And they want it like tomorrow, of course. Like,
right.
Oh, it's like, and of course, we do it. You know, we do it because we want the job. But it just has become its own different sort of process that we've had to adapt with.
Yeah, and one thing I wanted to mention too, just being in class with you and you know, learning from you, and when, you know, that idea that there's really no excuses. Like, you can make all the excuses in the world. Well, I have to do this, this, and this. Or someone comes to class and like, well, I wasn't able to really look at it because of this, and then you did. I just remember so many times. Okay, so get it done.
Yeah.
And just having that mind frame of like, yeah, I mean, yeah, would you want to have equal amount of time to take your sweet time on everything? But just in that business, this business, it just doesn't work that way. Like, it's going to come to your inbox and you're either going to do it or you're not, you know?
Exactly.
And who cares that you have class or work?
It's like when we started to do our showcase, because I used to do the showcases where we would work on it. The idea was we'll work on it until we're ready and we'll put it up. But then I'd have people coming in and they'd go up there and I'd go, well, what is this? He goes, have you guys been working on this? He said, no, I've been busy and I've been working. And it's like, well, I said, look, if you were working at the tape, if you were putting this up at the tape room next week, you would work on this in the middle of the night if you had to, you know? I said, the mindset you have of how we're doing this is wrong. So then I made the change of, we pick a date, right? Remember that we started and say, all right, this is the date we're going to do it. It'll be like 2 months, 3 months out.
Yeah.
That date is the date we're doing. Is everybody available? Okay. Don't come to me later on telling me you want to go on vacation or, you know, you did this or that. You have a date of a show that you are committed to show up and do. Okay. So then if they show up and they haven't done their work and I'm like, okay, well, that day will soon be today.
You know? Always say that. Yeah. That day will come.
Yeah, that day will soon be today and you will be on stage. Right? And you will suck. And that's not going to be on me. I'm not up there.
Yeah.
You're going to be up and you're not going to get out of this. You're not going to tell me. I've had people try to tell me, look, I'm not going to, fine, then leave. You're out the class because you got to make the gig. You have a date, show up to do the show, you know? So it changed the mentality where people are like, oh, that day's coming. Let's work. We got to get together at midnight to work. We got to work because we got to be ready for that show day.
Yeah, and one other thing in relation to Playhouse West, I wanted to say, like you do such a brilliant job at that school, and I honestly, there's times I'm like, how does he do it all? How did how does he teach all these classes? How does he do all these plays? And now he's like, I remember after the nursery rhyme thing, I knew the 120, the Love 120 we did. I knew that was coming up, but I'm like, hey, Wolf, I will never forget. Like we had just got done, like all this energy into the nursery rhyme. I'm like, hey, so the 120's next weekend, as in like next weekend after our show, and you just like, yeah, okay. And sure enough, got it done.
Yeah.
Did it. It was an amazing experience, and it's amazing what you're capable of when you set that deadline.
It's exactly. But here's the funny thing: with the COVID shutdown, right? It suddenly made me realize what I had been doing, and in some ways unhealthily so. You know, I mean, I would literally, we'd have a showcase, have the 120, then I'd have another play that we'd be opening a week later. I think one year I had a play opening, then the film festival, then another play right after the film. And it was like, my daughter's like, Dad, you don't sleep. It's like, that's nothing. And when the pandemic shut down, everything stopped, you know? And it was like, all of a sudden, it was like, whoa, you know? And funny, I had that whole year planned out. I had 4 plays lined up. I had made up schedules, had it all down. And all of that just went away. And suddenly it made me realize how I wasn't sleeping, wasn't eating well, you know, stuff. I was not taking the best care of myself because I was just always on the go. I loved it, you know, but it's one of those things about, I saw a meme about, you know, being a workaholic is not a badge of honor in a way. We kind of make it a badge of honor of being overworked, you know, and that's really not a good thing. So now moving forward, you know, trying to at least keep that idea of, even if I do get into those schedules, which I know I will, because every time it happens, people go, I shouldn't start this show then, but hey, let's just do it. We'll work it out. Okay. I know I will, but there's a lot of things personally I need to do, you know, have done better now to take care of myself, to be able to have the energy to do it, because I was probably going in a very bad direction at that point. So, but you're right. It got done.
Well, and at the same time, I think those are all great things you said too. And at the same time, you probably realize too the benefits of your deadlines, because you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like, you think you have 6 months to do something, you may not. So
yeah,
there is an advantage to doing what you're doing too, like keeping it rolling.
Keeping it going. I mean, if we set that date, we will work towards getting it done on that date. You know, come hell or high water.
And one last thing about Playhouse is like, and I try to tell people about my experience there. And it wasn't like just 2 years. It was 2 full, amazing years, and this amazing community of people, you being one of those people. And the film festivals, the 120s, the class, the scene nights, the plays, I mean, no matter what happens in my artistic film career or whatever, I really felt like I got to live the Hollywood experience, no matter how, whether anyone ever knows about it or not. Like, just the experience of it was so amazing, and the friends I have from that, and it's just one of the best times of my life.
Yeah, you were in a good group too. You know, that
Great
group, that community that you had, that you were in. You know, I'm in touch with a lot of those guys to this day. It was really fun to work with them and working with you. And I tell the guys in the beginning, you know, as when they start to realize that this is a lot of work, you know, twice a week, doors and activities, you got to come ready. And I said, but, you know, look, in the 2 years, let's say you're here for 2 years, you will have gone through something, you know. You will be put to the test. You'll have your highs, you'll have your lows, you'll have your struggles, you'll have your moments you want to quit. All of that. You will have gone through something, and you will leave with a philosophy about acting and how you approach the work. And like you said, the experiences of the community, and, you know, you were made, the participation of what you would, it's up to each student. We give you opportunities to participate in, and it's for each person to do that. So they get the most out of the experience, You could go through there and not do any of that stuff. I mean, class alone is enough to really kind of push you. But, you were smart to really kind of invest and really, get the most out of the experience.
Yeah, it was so much fun. And, well, thank you so much for taking the time.
Sure, man.
To do this. And we'll have to do something else. And I'm sure our paths are going to collide in some artistic way. Again, you're an artistic genius. And like you really, I just learned so much, not only just working with you, but just watching your mind and directing people. And it's really been a gift. If people want to reach out to you, if they want to find you, if they want to hire you for coaching services, what's the best way and places to go for people to get in touch with you?
I have a website. The website that people can go to is wolfbodison.com, WOLFBODISON.com. And from there, they can have the different pages where they can link to see for the coaching. And there's an email there that they can get a hold of me if they want to talk about coaching. And on that page, they can just make an appointment right there on the website. Because I have a scheduling app that shows when I'm available and that kind of stuff. It has the rates and that kind of thing. Even if you're interested in class, if you want to join Playhouse West, you can go to playhousewest.com and, they have the information about auditing, and you can come watch a class and hang in there to the end of class and interview with the teacher, even if it doesn't make any sense. Because it's funny, I've had so many students say that story. It's like, man, I was going to bail. And I just figured, let me just go up there and talk to the guy. And they're happy that they stayed, because it is something you have to buy into. We don't start with scene work. We start with these exercises that really, the great thing about Meisner technique, everyone talks about listening. Meisner technique is one system that actually has exercises that allow you to practice listening, practice being present, practice working off, expressing yourself out of yourself, not as a character, not trying to do a scene. Because when you introduce dialogue and introduce a scene, everything gets kind of muddled, So that's really the brilliance of Mr. Meisner, coming up with those exercises that I think are really the benefit of that technique.
It's interesting because, having the past year I've had recovering from an injury and all that, just having all this self-reflection, reading every book on the planet, it's like I came to the conclusion like, oh, wait, life's just about being present. But then I'm like, oh, man, like I went to an acting school that taught nothing. Meisner is a genius. It's just like he really had it. It's like a life philosophy. And it's like I really start to get it more and more. It's weird because you don't learn it overnight. Like it's such a simple concept, but it's so hard to like just let go and settle into that,
Well, it's funny. I say to students, I'm not trying to teach you how to do anything you don't already know how to do. You know how to be present and listen and have a conversation. Okay? The problem happens when we get dialogue and the expectation of a scene. If we're not drilled in that, that's the first thing out the window. And we bring a performance and we try to do some planned thing, regardless of what the other person is giving us. So it is that thing, like you said, we know how to do this. We just have to now suddenly work so hard to get back to that place of purity, when we're doing our work, because there are so many other distractions and expectations and our ego, and that performer we're so afraid of sucking and doing bad that, we tend to do this thing called acting that is not real.
Like you always tell us, you want to be like little kids, and I'm not going to lie to you. When I heard you were doing a fantasy unit, I was talking to Eric. He's like, we're about to start fantasies. I'm like, oh my God, does that sound amazing right now?
Yeah. You could have come, man. We had that alumni special that you would have qualified for. But you probably with your knee was.
Yeah, just not the right time yet. One day, right.
Hey, the door's always open, man.
Right. No, and that's what I
So,
I really do. I really do hope I get to
yeah.
cross paths with you creatively again. And Wolf, thanks again so much. I always give the guest the last word. It can be whatever you want. It can be for you advice to actors. It can be something that's been on your mind. It can be one of the movies you've seen lately. Anything you want to leave us with.
Well, I guess, the COVID experience, and again, it just kind of that moment of it took everything away from us for a moment. And we took, at least for myself, it was easy to take for granted what we do and this creative experience that we have, and what we have going. And, to have it taken away and literally stop. One day it stopped, March 16th. I walked out of the theater and didn't show up until a year and a month, and it's now something that myself really appreciates the opportunities that I get, and really try to make the most of it. And like you said, we realize it could be taken away. And we realize that with illness and death and stuff like that, things happen in life. Life is hard, So that was something that really put it in our face and said, hey, you appreciate what you have and love what you do, because this is all we have. I remember sitting around going, okay, what else can I do? Well, this is kind of what I do. It was no pivot. It was like, I just got to ride this out and start up when we're ready to go. So even now with my teaching, there would be days when it would be a grind back before COVID. And now I'm thinking, I thought during COVID, I said, hey, it'd be good to get back to that grind. And when I have that feeling about it being a grind, I remember when I was sitting around doing nothing, and find the joy in the grind. And because this is what I love to do.
Awesome. And you're amazing at it. And I'm very grateful to have met you, to have worked with you, to have learned under you. I'm really happy that you came on and we got to have this experience together. So
absolutely. Thanks for having me, Sam.
Well, thank you so much. I look forward to going to future Wolf Bodison productions.
Yeah. If, hopefully the issue with the school is we can't bring all the classes together because of the pods. Right. We got to keep them separate. So we put a moratorium on the shows for a while. So yeah, hopefully soon we get back.
They'll be back.
Yeah.
They'll be back. So, all right, Wolf, hang around for just a second when I end here. But Wolf, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Take care.